Welcome to My Empower Project with your host, Erin Rowe. We will discuss nutrition, fitness, becoming your own boss, and just becoming better every day. I invite you to join My Empower Project as we embark, embrace, encompass, and enlighten.
Brielle Slate is the founder of the Create Your Own Life podcast, which studies the highest performers in the world. He studied literature at Oxford University and is a former champion powerlifter turned entrepreneur. He specializes in using podcasting and new media to create trust and build leader status for his clients. In iTunes, he was ranked #1 in the business category and ranked number 78 in the top 100. He has been named a top influencer by Forbes. After his success in podcasting, Jeremy and his wife Brielle founded Command Your Brand to help entrepreneurs get their message out by appearing as guests on podcasts. Hey Jeremy, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good, good. So we met in the gym a while back when I started to weight train, and I don't even remember exactly how because I tried not to look anybody in the eye back then when I was learning, but I love that we're in the same space as far as our aspirations. So I would love if you could tell me a little bit about what you're up to now and how you got there.
Absolutely. So now I have a iTunes Top 100 rated podcast called the Create Your Own Life Show. And I also have a media company called Command Your Brand Media, where we help people appear as guests on top rated podcasts, teach them all about positioning and also what to do with their content. So we're really trying to help people that want to make an impact, make a really big impact. I think I lost you.
How you doing, Jeremy?
Hey, I'm doing awesome, Erin. It's stoked to catch up. It's been way too long since you and I hung out.
And thanks for being on My Empower Project. I'm so glad we get to chat today. What is a key factor for you to help business owners with public relations?
Wow. So it's honestly, it's going back to the basic of what is PR and why would people do it? Because I find often there's this confusion between PR and marketing and what are the two things, and people think they're the same thing and they're totally not. So PR is the thing that as a business owner shows your credibility, helps you level up, and makes your marketing and stuff work better. So I like to say it this way, right? Marketing's hungry hippos, or more Facebook ads, more this stuff, more that, and when it runs out, it's done. So doing PR creates that know, like, and trust factor so that you have something there that makes those ads convert better, that changes your online presence and changes your footprint. So that's, I guess, the easiest way to kind of start explaining it. And I guess we can kind of see where you want to go with this.
Well, tell me about new media PR.
So new media PR is so in old world PR, right? People think TV, they think radio, they think stuff like that. And the mediums are changing like crazy. And funny enough, I just learned the other day how radio actually does their stats. They find 1,000 people in a city, send them a survey, and they multiply that by the population, and they say that's their listeners. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know who's actually listening to my podcast. So new media is online media. So that's meaning YouTube videos, it's meaning podcasts, it's meaning web shows, it's meaning online publications. And the really cool thing about this is since, we're in such a big world, it's a pool that everybody can play in, right? There's different levels of where you can start. So I teach people there's something called a small pond strategy. And you'll appreciate this since you know the area I grew up in and everything like that. I'm from a town called Hamburg, which is 5/8 of a mile in size. Doesn't have a grocery store. Nothing really happens there. And I located this small newspaper that sends to everybody's house. You probably are familiar with this one, the Advertiser News. Yes?
Yes.
And it sends to everybody's house on a Thursday. Their press day is Tuesday, meaning anything you send in by Tuesday, they'll print it and run it on Thursday. So one of the things I did is I ran some press releases in this publication, and it got me some early attention because it got noticed in the Advertiser, but they also have an online component as well. So I could start to build a media footprint using that. And I got my university to cover me. I got some Rotary clubs to cover me and stuff like that. So I use these smaller ponds to kind of build up and up and up to bigger media. So that's the really cool strategy to getting and using online media is anybody can do it.
And why is branding so important?
Because branding is why somebody would choose you over somebody else, right? One of my favorite people in branding and somebody that's been a huge mentor to me is a guy named David Brielle. And he talks about the idea of rising above the noise, right? if you don't differentiate from the brands and other people around you, like for example, as a podcast, right? If you don't differentiate, then you're just promoting podcasts and not what's interesting and special and different about yours. So branding is why people would choose you over others. Like, what is your credibility? What are you known for? What are you doing? Who are you seen with? Like positioning. And that's one of the big things that my podcast has done for me is I've interviewed a lot of incredible experts, and that's helped me to raise my brand positioning. Like I've had Gary Vaynerchuk on, I've had Grant Cardone on, and I've had a lot of these cool people on. So what happens is it gives you more credibility in this space. And that's the difference in kind of the personal brand world we're in now is, people are brands, right? Like big brands, they're still going to be there and they still happen, but it's a lot harder to do something like that in this day and age because those monoliths are just very different. So like really what we're doing is creating credibility as people. And that's how we're able to flow power to our businesses. Like people do business with Grant Cardone because they know who he is as an influencer. People do business with Gary Vaynerchuk because they know who VaynerMedia is because of him. And I think that's what we're really seeing in terms of brand building is it's changing to becoming individual brands.
So rise above the noise. I really like that.
There's so much noise out there, right? Like everybody wants to, look at a show like Entrepreneur on Fire and do exactly that. And it's like, great. Well, people are going to remember John, not you, because he's kind of done it first, been first in the space and made himself different.
So regarding standing out, you have your podcast, Create Your Own Life. Mm-hmm. And you went beyond that and created the company Command Your Brand, where you help others. And is that something you envisioned or it just kind of happened out of demand?
No, it's funny because like you've known me all through this process, like when I was like trying to like make a lot of stuff go right. So it's like very funny in that way. So it started with the podcast as just like a bunch of, I did network marketing, didn't really work out. I did selling life insurance, didn't really work out. Tried some internet marketing, didn't really work out. So I tried a lot of things that didn't work. And I kind of started the podcast as like a last stitch, like hobby, like, hey, this would be cool to like have some creativity. And I had been teaching high school for a couple of years, super unhappy doing it. And, tried all those different things. I actually ended up working at a friend's web design firm, building websites that I learned how to do from YouTube. And I was doing that and started this podcast as a hobby. And the first version tanked. It was absolutely horrible, called Rock Your Life. Please don't Google it because it is out there. Yes, Google it because you'll laugh. But it was really bad because the graphic design was bad. The miking was bad. Like I didn't have a microphone. Like it just wasn't very good for anybody. And then when I came back around, I took a bunch of courses and learned like how to be a professional. And that's where the Create Your Own Life came from. I listed the top 100 people I most admired, reached out to a bunch of them and had some pretty good success early on in getting them on. And we had 10,000 listens in our first 30 days. So it started growing pretty fast. And I had a couple people reach out to me and say, hey, can you do that for me? So we tried it for one person. And I was a little crazy because I'm like, oh, we'll do everything. So we did this, like I called it a podcast in a box. Like we did your podcast, meaning we did your graphic design, did your cover art, did your guest booking, did your editing, interview questions, social media. Like it was way too many things. And given that my wife is like done so much in PR, she was like, all right, well, the next thing we have to do is get him on podcasts and get him some media to like launch that. So we created a couple really cool podcasts, but number one, we weren't making any money because it was too much work for the amount we were making. Number two, clients were coming to us and saying, hey, like the podcast is great, but like, could you just like get me on podcast shows and kind of teach me how to be a great guest on those shows? And that's when, Command Your Brand became what it was because we focused on just doing that and got rid of the 80% that people didn't want. And that's really what we've doubled down on.
Well, your guests really are top notch. And I was going to ask you like what you did differently between your first. I'm still learning, as you know, but I feel like we have the same mindset as far as like being unbreakable. And it's funny. I think I was at one of your like surprise parties years ago and we're waiting for you to show up. And I was talking to one of your friends, Drew, and he was telling me about
Drew works for me now. He's our director of sales.
I just saw that.
He's incredible.
So we were talking about Amazon, and this is before I ever got involved in Amazon myself. So yeah, we have seen each other's like trials. But what are like 2 or 3 things that you feel gave you that unbreakable, limitless mindset?
A lot of it was like a lot of the stuff I was reading, honestly, because like when I tried to sell my first insurance product, like I like called one person and I got yelled at by like an 85-year-old man whose wife had just passed away. And like, it was like, he's like, you don't understand my pain. I'm like, sir, I'm really sorry. I didn't know you couldn't buy anything else at 85. So like, I got really beat up by that first person, and I was kind of like, ugh, what do you do? And I read a book called The 10X Rule, and it taught me about like the number of times you have to do something to actually get a result. And I've taken that mindset into every single thing I've done. And that's been huge. And that's the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. So I've really taken that level of action in anything I've done. Has it always been perfect? No. Has it always been pretty? Probably not. But it was enough to get moving. And I don't know, like, I just think for me, that's just something also that I've had, like, cause I've always been like focused on fitness, or I've always been focused on my sport, or I've been focused on, whatever it is I'm doing. So I've been able to, flow that level of, like intent on that. Like if I decide I'm going to do something, like, yeah, I may screw some stuff up, but eventually I'm going to get it right. Not everybody's really willing to like stick it out and see it through. And I think that's the big difference that people have to really think with. Like, things are going to be hard, things are going to be tough. It's not going to go right the first time, but keep going at it. So just, that's a mindset I feel like I've just had as an athlete. So I don't really have a better answer to that.
No, that's a great answer. And you brought up the 10X rule. That book's on my list, but I love Grant Cardone.
I haven't read it yet.
No, but I love Grant.
Game changer.
Yeah. Elena's book literally changed my whole year. Like
amazing.
Amazing. So yeah, he's a big time real estate investor for people who don't know, and he's working on becoming a billionaire. And without putting words in his mouth, I think he said he attributed some of his success to Scientology.
Yeah, no, he did.
Yeah, so
it's been a big help to me as well, honestly.
I was going to ask you, I don't know if you feel comfortable.
It's fine.
Yeah, because like I'm a Christian, but I know they hold a high standard to like teaching and maintaining success. So can you speak on that? Yeah,
so well, Scientology is like, it's a non-denominational like religion, like meaning in the way that like, I'm Catholic, was born Catholic, still Catholic. And it makes me a better Catholic. Because what it is it's tools to handle life, right? Like, there's situations that may arise in your life, and there's actually a way to handle that rather than kind of freaking out and being like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So it helps me to address myself as a spiritual being, because we're all spirits, we're all souls. So there's that portion, but then also like there's conditions in life, meaning like things may be going really well now, and that's called affluence. There's an actual step-by-step formula that you can apply in your life or in your business to get things going even better. And I think that's what people don't understand about Scientology is it's an applied religious philosophy. Like, it's tools that you can actually use to make change in your life. There's technology around study. Like, I've become a lot better student. There's technology to growing your business, which has been a really big deal to me. So honestly, that's been a big game changer for me.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you about that, because I know people aren't too familiar. I look up to you for creating your own life with the podcast, pun intended, but also your ability to travel. I also love to travel. And in my opinion, a lot of people are held back from taking the risk of starting their own business. But I think we should be fearful of the old way of thinking of relying on one stream of income or letting your boss like hold your finances in the palm of their hands. What are your thoughts on that, on the new millennial strategy of life?
Well, it's funny because that's actually where the name "Create Your Own Life" came from. Because my dad and I like really disagree on this, because he's somebody that he played professional sports, and he started the machine shop at a company. Once he got hurt and couldn't play anymore, and worked his way all the way up to like a director level position in his company. Without a college degree. So more power to you. But the world just isn't like that anymore. Like, it isn't. Like, companies don't have the same level of I guess faith in their employees and stuff like that. Like, your only true security is in yourself and your own skill set, right? Like, economies can change, businesses can change, things can downsize. But if you're, whether you're a freelancer or an entrepreneur, like if you're somebody that's different businesses are just hiring you for small jobs, if you're getting better and better and better and becoming the best at it, well, then, you don't have competition a lot of times. So I think, honestly, there's more security in yourself and your own skill set rather than being effective in economy or a job loss or anything like that. So that's really my viewpoint on it, and that's really what I'm hammering home to people. I just feel bad for the poor people in California right now with this whole like way they're changing freelancing and stuff like that, because it's making it harder for them to get employment out there. I do think, your own securities in yourself, whether it's as an entrepreneur or as a freelancer.
I agree with that. So my next question, I think we're going to agree with this, but I know a lot of people, they may not call themselves entrepreneurs, but like they might be part of an MLM, or they sell a product, or just like for all those creatives included, Do you think that making your health a priority has an impact on success in a business?
Oh, absolutely. Because I know for me, like that's the first thing I address every morning. Like I take my 3 to 5 minute cold shower every morning. I work out first thing. You know, I'm not as crazy with my diet like I used to be because I've kind of found out like what works for my body. I don't carry the cooler around anymore. But I think that's a huge thing. If I don't have my cold shower, my bulletproof coffee, and my workout first thing, the day isn't the same because I'm not right in the right mindset. So I think in order to like produce the best through our day, we need to show up the best. And for me, fitness has been a huge component. You know, whether it's in my business or even in my personal life.
I thought you would agree with me on that. Because I'm soon releasing my meal prep strategy course.
Oh, awesome.
It's Fit Nomad. So it's going to touch on like my personal wellness hacks, like you mentioned, bulletproof coffee. And we did meet in the gym. But I believe, you know, like I said, my true passion, well, maybe it's like 60-40 is food and nutrition, but I'm going to teach others what just I've learned and what's worked for me after life hit me in the face hard after the loss of my mom. I know you've experienced some family difficulties.
Yeah.
What is your thought on food awareness, honestly?
So here's the thing, like, I think we need to know a lot more of what we're eating, like, especially like GMO and things like that. There's a reason that, you know, genetically modified organisms are banned in the European Union. Like, so I think it's really important to know like where our food's coming from, you know, where it's coming from and how it's made and things like that, because what we think could be healthy isn't always healthy. So I would tell people to not only worry about like eating quote unquote healthy or eating the right way, but also know your food sources, know where they're coming from, because you may be ingesting chemicals or different things you're not aware of if you just don't know. So I think it's interesting because I think this has come more to the forefront recently, but the nutrition argument has changed, or conversation has changed a lot, because it's not just about the idea of eating healthy, because there's more to it than that anymore.
And something else you said was you found out what worked for you.
Yes.
And that's what I want to get across to people.
Oh
like,
my
you don't
gosh,
have to
yeah.
follow this one book or so. Like, everyone's different.
Yeah, like I just did a podcast episode today with a good friend of mine, Felicia Romero. She's like an 8-time cover model, and she's been at Olympia and stuff like that. And she had a breakdown in her late 20s because, you know, she was competition and then working for the next competition and working for the next competition and working for the next competition. And she just mentally and physically broke down. And she found out like, hey, like, what can I do to feel good and be healthy? And it's this whole idea of moderation and finding out what's right to you. Like these one size fits all diets, just, it doesn't work like that. We're so different. And that's honestly like the reason that, you know, she's now helping people in the corporate wellness space, because she found out regular people just need help. And I think there's just so many lies and, you know, fad diets and things out there right now that people are just saying because it's cool. Like you got to find out what works for you.
Yeah. Moderation, like you said. And also you said she was seeing a change in her mental and physical, and like
Yes.
they relate, and people don't put them together. And actually your company, so with Command Your Brand, like you can actually help reduce people's stress, because it is a lot of work to have a podcast. And
yeah.
So tell me what somebody could expect when they come to work with you.
So it's interesting because like a lot of the people that we're working with are CEOs and founders and people that have a really big vision. And like they want to get on podcasts as a guest and really harness that power. But either A, their team doesn't know a lot about the podcast space because it is something that's changing fast and specialized and whatever it may be. Or B, they just don't have time, or their team doesn't have time. So really what we do is we find out exactly who they need to be in front of, and we locate shows just like that. And then we actually do a coaching process for them around what we call story, message, and call to action. Because we find every interview really has 3 key points, and that's the story, message, call to action. And we also give them a content repurposing course, because so much of what you're doing, whether it's on a podcast interview or whether it's an article or whatever, is what you're going to do with it. So we also teach people how to use it to create the right positioning and the right content, because, you know as well as I do, but like going on one podcast interview, if you use it correctly, could be used as 6 months to a year worth of content. Like I have interviews that I'm still pulling stuff out of and using. So we really want to teach people not like just getting them on the right shows and things like that, but teaching them like how to create quality content that's going to pay off themselves and also the hosts that they're working with for years to come.
Do you also help with advice on expanding reach?
Well, a lot of that stuff does expand reach, right? Like if you're getting on the right shows, if you're getting in front of the right people, if you're realizing like this appearance is not the end product, it's what I'm doing with it. And that's why often I tell people like the call to action should be something that continues the relationship. It should be like an invitation to do that. So for example, we had a client that in the real estate space, he was helping realtors to get their own leads. And it was something really, really valuable. So he told them everything they needed to know on an interview. But when he got to the end, he'd be like, well, I actually put together this really awesome worksheet for you on how you can actually put your leads together in Facebook and what that's going to look like. And he offered him a free call. And that was an ability to actually continue the relationship after that interview. And he made it one place that they could go. So I think that's really the point, is understanding that each interview you do, each media piece you do is not the final product, but it's kind of something you can use to continue the relationship with the people you meet and are introduced to.
Well, relationships are everything. So I think that's an excellent thing to focus on. Where can we find you on social?
Absolutely. So if people want to check us out, there's two different places. One being my personal site, which is jeremyryanslate.com. Because my parents named me after a bad cowboy actor named Jeremy Slate. Or they can check out the business side of things over at commandyourbrand.com.
Well, shout out to my assistant, Rachel. She's going to put those links in the notes below. And thank you, Jeremy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Erin.
Thank you for listening. You can find every episode, including the written versions to read, on erinrowe.com. Be sure to leave a review because I love hearing your opinions on the topics I shared. Are they new? Are they helpful for you? Tap that subscribe button so you don't miss the future interviews and enlightenment to come. This episode was brought to you by me, and only me, because I love sharing new ideas with you. Take action to become better. Have a fabulous day.